guys, how we doing today? I'm your Emperor, Crown Fiend, and today we're doing What If Deku Had a Half and Half Quirk Part 2. Now, you guys absolutely destroyed the light goal on the last video. I asked for 500, and at the time of this recording, it's over 1,000. So, yeah. Anyways, this is the next light goal. Since we're almost at 9,000 subscribers, give me 900 likes, and then I'll start working on part 3. And keep in mind, the day you hit the light goal, the video's gonna come out the next day after that. So, just gonna say that at the beginning, because I know if I would have said that at the end, 99% of you guys wouldn't have watched to the end to hear that part. So, yeah, have to make sure I put that at the beginning. Now, here's to clarify a few little things real quick. People wondering, how can Shinzo get further than Deku did when Deku used 100%? Deku used one finger that had 100% and broke it. And I don't know if people who've actually thrown something and had a part of your body misfunction or fucking break, but that takes a lot of the force that you put into it out. And Shinzo's has full cowling, which is evenly distributing the power. And though he's only at 4%, the power loss that Deku had from his one finger throw, when Shinzo's able to use the power in his entire body and put his entire body behind the throw, that makes a huge difference. So, yes, it's not impossible that Shinzo could get 50 meters further than Deku. So, that's the reason. Now, just to clarify, I've seen people, referring to Deku's quirk as Overhaul, kind of. The matter manipulation quirk is a lot more powerful than Overhaul. With Overhaul, you have to physically touch a person. You can disassemble the person, and then you can reassemble it. This is a lot more powerful because you don't have to touch them, and you're not limited to really doing anything. And mind you, Overhaul can't add mass to an object from nothing. So, yeah, Deku can use his own body fat to add mass to an object. He can take it away and gain that body fat and put it into another object. He can make things denser than what they normally are, which Overhaul cannot do. Overhaul can't alter something's density and make it stronger or much more brittle. That's how matter manipulation is different, and that is how it's a lot more powerful and a lot more potent than Overhaul is. So, with that out of the way, let's get back into this with part 2. So, where we last left off, it was the test. Deku was raised by the government, and I saw a lot of you guys, saying that, oh, he should be like Hawks, Well, I'll just go ahead and say this. He is and he isn't at the same time. So, I'll just let you guys kind of theorize on what I mean by that. But, anyways. So, yeah, Deku was raised by that, came back. Him and Uraka are cousins in this one. Uraka's dating Bakugo. Todoroki's a female in this one. And kind of has a thing for Deku. And Deku has a thing for her. So, it's reciprocated. So, with this, let's jump right back into it right now. So, after that whole test, everybody goes home, and Deku's just kind of, just enjoying the night air. However, something interesting does happen. He is met by Hawks. Since Hawks knows about Deku being raised by the Hero Association, they kind of have Hawks keeping an eye on Deku, and Deku has to report things back to Hawks. Like I said, he's like Hawks, but he isn't at the same time. He is an agent, but the way they go about doing things is completely different. Deku tells Hawks that, there's a lot of students in there that have a lot of promise, but nothing that could be too overly dangerous. So, for right now, we have nothing to worry about. Hawks appreciates that and walks with Deku as the two of them go to grab dinner. Deku gets some barbecue with Hawks as they just sit down and eat. Hawks and Deku talk about a lot of things, like their childhoods, how they're similar, and then Deku says, true, we do have a lot of similarities, but let's talk about how we're different too. Hawks says, what do you mean? How are we different? Deku says, for one, we're different because I don't go along with everything they tell me to. I'll break rules if it means the job's done better, if it's easier, and if it doesn't put as many people at risk. You'll do everything that they tell you to do just because, and then you'll kind of make shit up on the fly. You don't really stick to a plan, Hawks. That makes you dangerous, and that makes situations that you're in very volatile and could end in disaster. You need to have a plan at all times and contingencies for your plans. It's something I was taught because they made that fuck up with you. So don't think we're completely alike. We're not. You're a loose cannon, and I'm a controlled satellite. One that could destroy this entire planet. Or nothing similar. You're a cannon, you can do limited amount of damage that could eventually, be widespread. Me, when I do damage, everything is destroyed. To me, this whole world, it's like it's made of glass. You don't get how much I have to hold back to make sure I don't break something, don't break someone. With my power, I could easily flatten the entire continent of Asia right now. You have no idea the fear that comes with my power. You don't know how that shaped my mental state. That's something I have to live with and have to keep under control for the rest of my life. I can't afford to lose control. I can't afford to get emotional. Because if I do, guess what? The whole world pays the price. And I don't get to apologize. I get killed. So next time you want to talk about how much we're alike, remember how different we are, Hawks. You're a free spirit. I'm a dog on a chain. See you around, and thanks for the meal. So Deku heads on home. He gets some sleep, even though he's relatively pissed off. He doesn't like being compared to other people, especially another person that grew up the same way he did. And even though Deku is fully licensed, he's at UA for a reason. He's part of a program that looks for people with overly dangerous quirks and brings them to the hero agency to be trained. So I'll have more agents. It's 100% Deku's call. However, he is on a short leash. If he ever loses control, they won't hesitate to put him down. So, Deku has to be very careful. So the next few days, they come and go. Then All Might bursts into the room as he says, "I am here, entering the door like a hero." And he starts telling everybody, it's time to suit up in your hero attire. The clothes make the pros. And so they all head out. Now, for Deku's hero costume, it's going to be very similar to the one that you see on the thumbnail. In fact, it's exactly like that. It doesn't have the hood because he was never a really big, huge fan of All Might for as long as he was. He always held All Might as a goal to surpass while being very careful. So he wouldn't have the same hood, but the overall costume design would relatively be the same, except he does have those support items that's on his arms, and I'm going to say he does have the steel soles on his shoes to support his legs and all of that. So think of it as a mixture of his Season 5 outfit, except no hood. Those white armbands are actually the blue spirals that you saw in the first movie, but they go all the way up to his elbow on each one. So that's pretty much his attire, and his costume is purple with some blue highlights. And that's his hero outfit. Now, with that, Deku's pretty much, he's ready for whatever type of training this is. And All Might says it's going to be heroes versus villains. They're going to be randomized in teams of 2 against people. And with this, I don't think that Deku, Uraka, Bako, and Ito would still end up on the same team. You see, the law of probability says that if something happens once, it's generally not going to happen again. So, with an infinite amount of possibilities, that same outcome happening is very low. So, I've actually taken the time to put these names through a randomizer. And I'm only going to cover Deku's fight. So, the people that's going to be teamed up with Deku and who are going to be his opponents are Deku and Mina versus Kirishima and Tokiyami. So, that's the team, and that's the one I'm going to cover. The rest of them, you can use your imagination. So, anyway. Deku is teamed up with Mina, and they're actually the heroes in this one. And Kirishima and Tokiyami are the villains. So, they go and get set up. They have a few minutes, and Deku's running through plans with Mina, saying that if she wants to win this quickly, he'll just use his matter manipulation on the building. If she doesn't want to win this quickly, then they can do a more brazen strategy, more fun one. Mina pretty much just says that she wants to win this relatively quickly. Because, for one, if she can pass right here and now and not even have to fight, then sure. So Deku says, okay then. Let's go ahead and do that. So All Might says, you can now begin. Deku just walks to the building. All Might says, what's wrong? He places his left hand on the building and starts to reshape the entire building structure. All Might's like, what the hell? Because this is amazing to him. He's never seen anything quite like this. And Deku actually restructures the building to where the Doomsday device is right there on the bottom floor, right in front of them. Tokiyami and Kirishima are all the way on the top of the roof now. And Mina touches the Doomsday device, and All Might calls time. Deku, Mina, win. So everyone's just looking at them, just like, wow, that was fast. That was incredible. All Might says that was an ingenious plan. There were no unnecessary risks. There was no unnecessary damage done. Hell, there was no damage done. And it was very efficient and effective. So, All Might gives them passing marks. As for Kirishima and Tokiyami, since they really couldn't do much against that, All Might gives them a C on that one. Because he doesn't want to fail them, but at the same time, not being able to show what you can do and not being able to adapt to the situation really isn't the best, so he gives them a C. Now, as for all the other matches, pretty much you already know the team with Todoroki on it is going to win, as she'll just freeze it over. And yeah, so use your imagination for the rest of it. Now, when All Might asks everyone, like, who did the most effective, work, who did it the quickest and all that stuff, everyone kind of just says Deku and Mina. Because, for one, they came up with a plan in such a short amount of time that allowed for them to just fully take advantage of the situation and get the win. If they would have been villains, it would have been a much more interesting fight. But at the same time, they doubt it would have ended any differently. And that's pretty much when All Might says that, yes, young Midoriya is a genius when it came to his planning. He followed through with it. And on top of all that, he made sure there was no unnecessary risk. If he was a villain, though, it would be much more interesting to see. But there's no time for that. So with that, they dismiss class for the day. Everybody gets changed, they go home, and Todoroki actually, rushes over to Deku and says, hey, do you want to, go grab something to eat? Deku says, sure. He doesn't mind. However, that's when other guys come up to Todoroki and ask her if she wants to go out with them. Todoroki gives them an ice-cold glare and says to buzz off. They're annoying her. And then she turns back to Deku and says, okay, where do you want to go eat? Deku is just like, oh, hold up. Are we not going to talk about that? She says, talk about what? He says, how come you're so nice with me? Well, everybody else, you're really ice cold too. You don't talk to any of the other students in our class. You don't really have that many good people skills. The recommendation test with that guy in NASA gave that dude the absolute cold shoulder. And that's when, Todoroki says that she doesn't like, people running up and acting like they know her. And she's pretty much known Deku for over 10 months. So of course she's going to be more comfortable around him. And she does talk to Uraraka and Bakugo sometimes. Just not anybody else. Deku says, well, that girl Momo seemed like she was trying to be your friend. Todoroki says, yeah, sorry. But the rich girl princess shit that acts like she's too good to actually do stuff, yeah, not my cup of tea to be friends with. Deku says, I didn't get that vibe at all. She's like, what vibe did you get? And Deku says, she seems to not have any confidence in herself. And Momo said, you did see the hero costume, right? Deku says, no, I was too distracted by yours. And Todoroki punches him in the arm and says, be serious. And Deku says, of course I saw it. I saw everybody's. And she says, and you think that's the type of costume a girl with no confidence would wear? Deku says, fair point, but I was talking about more in battle strategies. You could tell at the recommendation test she was very timid and shy and didn't have the confidence that she would actually pass it. And then today, her strategy, she mainly relied on her teammate. She's not ready to push herself. And that's going to hold her back. And if it continues, it could get someone killed. Todoroki said, you said it, not me. So they go and get some ramen. And Todoroki's actually okay with eating ramen because while it is hot food, like, she's gotten over that. So, yeah. They have a nice little date. And Deku heads on home. And we're just going to go ahead and skip to the date of the USJ. When Deku wakes up, he actually has to call the school and says that he'll be there a bit late today. And they say that's okay. And Deku heads to the Hero Agency where he has to make a formal report over what he's found out so far. And so he gets there, he starts his report off by mentioning everybody in Class 1A. He gets to Shinzo and they seem very interested in him, how he could have two quirks. And then they say, oh, Todoroki, Endeavor's daughter, she has two quirks, right? And Deku's just like, yes. She says, but it's fire and ice, not as destructive as yours. Keep a closer eye on Shinzo. He could be a problem, but he could also be a valuable asset. You'll have to let us know in time. Alright, that's enough. You can head on back to school. Deku says, sure thing. As he walks out of there, just his whole mood has tanked. He's just not in the best mood at all whatsoever. Meanwhile, on his way back to school, the USJ event is already underway. So, the students are riding on the bus. Todoroki's just talking with Uraraka, and that's when Asui asks Todoroki, does she have a thing for Midoriya? Todoroki's face turns red a little bit as she says, why do you ask? And Asui just says, well, like, you guys are always together. And Todoroki says that she's known him for over 10 months now, so of course she'd be with him. He's a good friend. And, you know, Todoroki's not one to really just openly admit her feelings. So, yeah. She's just kind of playing it little and hoping that it doesn't escalate too much on the bus. And Bakugo says, yeah, right. If he was just a friend, you wouldn't stare at him the way you do. A little bit of advice. He hasn't had the best life, probably. But he does seem happy when he talks to you. So, I'd bet anything he's into you. So if you're into him, try to make a move. Because the kid I knew, he'd probably never do that in a million years. But from what I've seen, no, I'm not so sure about that anymore. But I've seen a lot of other girls eyeing him too. So, my advice to you, I'd get to him before somebody else does. Because no matter what you're telling us, I doubt you want to be heartbroken. As Uraraka, kind of just nudges Bakugo and says, you need to be nicer. And Bakugo says, that's the nicest way I could put it. And Todoroki, she says, yeah, that's fine. Aizawa says, cut the chatter, they're here. So everybody gets off, and they start heading in. Now at that time, Deku, he's almost to school. He's like 50% there. Now, once they're in there, 13 goes over her explanation. However, at this time, the whole incident with the villains, it happens. The door slams shut, and everybody's scattered around. However, before the doors slam shut, Ida does run out the door. It takes some help from other people, but he does get out the door and go run to get help. Because at that time, Aizawa's already fighting people, and some of the students have already been scattered. And 13 does tell Ida that he does need to go and get help. So Ida's running as fast as he can. And at that time, Deku's at school. He just got to the front gates. And he's walking into Nezu's office when Ida runs in. And Ida, he's hysterical. He's out of breath, he's sweating, and he says that villains are attacking the USJ. Deku is pissed to hear this as he tells Nezu he's on his way. And All Might says, "Not by yourself, you're not. I'm going with you." Deku looks at All Might and says, "Think you can keep up?" All Might says, "Please, I should be asking you that." So, the two head off to the USJ together. However, with Deku, he jumps up and uses his gravity to just launch him straight through the air. And he's covering great distances at a fucking time. He gets there in no time, and right as soon as he gets to the doors, he just fucking almighty pushes those bitches right down and sends it flying through there. And at that time, he's looking around and he sees things. 13 halfway destroyed. Just Uraraka in tears. Bakugo holding down some kind of foam thing. Shinzo absolutely beaten and bloodied. Todoroki getting her eye smashed through as she's trying her best to protect herself and others. It's just a slaughter. So Deku walks in there. Uraraka sees his eyes. They're glowing purple. Like, they're normally purple, but this time they're fucking glowing, having fucking light streaks come off of them. His hair standing up on end. As he just says, "Who hurt you?" And all Uraraka can do is point at Nomu and Shigaraki. As Deku walks, he's putting craters in the ground with each footstep. As the gravity starts getting stronger and stronger, Deku reaches out his arm, takes control of Nomu's gravity, lifts him up into the air, and then crushes him. As Nomu's body is forced to cave in on itself. His bones start poking through his body. His brain gets crushed into goo. Nomu is reduced to a bubbly pulp of blood and organs on the ground. As Shigaraki tries to escape, Deku immediately pulls Shigaraki to him. And as soon as Shigaraki's in range, Deku uses his matter manipulation to completely have Shigaraki's bones start stabbing out of his body. Shigaraki is in excruciating pain, and Deku stops the gravity right there so Shigaraki can't touch him, and he's just floating while Deku's playing with his bones, his organs, his eyes, teeth, every part of Shigaraki's body that can be manipulated. Deku is causing excruciating pain. He causes Shigaraki's eyes to blow up in his skull. His bones from his toes start shooting out as Deku then causes them to shoot into his skull. His teeth are sent up in, going through his brain. And then he just lets him fall down to the ground as Deku stomps on Shigaraki's skull, reducing it to a paste, and walks forward. As soon as he uses his gravity to pull everybody towards the entrance, Deku says this is gonna hurt like hell, but he's got no real choice here. He uses his matter manipulation by touching the ground, his gravity with his other hand, and he starts tearing apart the USJ. Pieces of the ground start coming up, forming together, as Deku just keeps condensing it. Every villain that's in there gets lifted up and thrown into that pile with the earth, the boats, the water, everything in there, including the fire, is put into one place, as Deku then causes the gravity to shoot it up as he keeps forcing it up and up and up. It goes shooting out through the Earth's atmosphere into orbit and actually starts, having a rotation around the moon. The moon now has its own moon. And that's going to cause a lot of changes on the Earth. But Deku can always release it and cause it to become nothing more than an asteroid field that hits the Earth. So he can always undo that damage. And everyone looks at Deku. He has blood coming out of his mouth. His nose is bleeding. And it's from the drawback, because he's never lifted something that big into orbit safely. It took a lot of control and focus, and the drawback that kept hitting him every time. Keep in mind, he's not wearing his support whatsoever, so it hits him. It does some damage to him, as it's all self-inflicted damage, of course, but it still hurts like hell. As for Kurogiri, well, he's in orbit as well, frozen, so not a whole lot he can do. So, with that, it deals with a lot of the League of Villains, like damn near all their members. All Might finally gets there and sees that Deku finished everything up. He sees the deceased Shigaraki right there. As the police arrive, Deku's actually told to go to the hospital for a checkup. So the ambulance take him to what they're calling the hospital, but is really the Hero Agency Medical Facility. You see, there they have state-of-the-art medical facilities that they use to treat their agents with. And they want to have a long talk with Deku about what the fuck just happened and why the moon suddenly has its own mini-moon orbiting it. And Deku's not looking forward to that conversation whatsoever. So he chooses to get some sleep before he arrives. Back with everybody else, they're doing witness statements, everything like that. Shinzo is put into the hospital to recover, and All Might's there with Shinzo, saying that he's sorry he failed to be there for him. Shinzo said, "No need to worry, you were out doing hero stuff. How could you have known?" He's sorry that he wasn't able to protect everybody. And All Might says, "We'll get stronger. In fact, I know the perfect person that can help make you stronger." And Shinzo says, "Yeah, about that. With the ball, that day, it felt light." All Might says, "Well, that's good. That means you're strong." And Shinzo says, "No. It felt too light. There was no gravity on that ball." As All Might says, "Someone's been helping you." Deku, and he only thinks of one person. Midoriya. Yeah. Who Bakugo calls Deku. He may have helped me out a lot. As All Might says, don't think about that right now. We'll find out. But for now, get some rest. You've earned it. And Deku is getting interrogated by the Hero Agency now. He's not liking it one bit. So Hawks decides that he'll go in there and talk to him. And they have kind of a connection, so it'll go a lot smoother with him. And they say, fine, but you report everything that he tells you to us. Understand? Hawks says, yeah, sure, I understand. So, while Deku's getting pumped full of fluids, and he's getting treated for his wounds, and x-rayed, Hawks goes in there, he stands behind the deal, and he starts talking to Deku, until the x-ray is done. After that, the doctors all leave the room, and Hawks starts his real talk with Deku. He says, tell me what was going on in there. What got you so pissed you gave us a new mini-moon? By the way, you're going to want to undo that pretty soon, before it starts fucking up the Earth's climate. The water levels, everything the moon keeps normal. Deku says, yeah. You're just going to have to give me a few days, alright? Without my supports, that was the first time I've ever lifted something that huge, that far. And Hawks says, understandable, but what made you do it? Deku says, they made my cousin cry. My classmates were nearly killed. A teacher I'm pretty sure is dead. My homeroom teacher, Aizawa. He's pretty badly hurt. And the girl I like, well, she was almost killed. So, yeah. Of course, that would piss me off. And Hawk says, now, what was that about you not being able to get pissed off because, the world would pay the price? Deku says, I was still in control. I said if I lost control. And he says, yeah, of course, if you lost control. But tell me, could you really call that being in control? Deku says, nobody that I didn't want to get hurt got hurt. Alright? No innocent people were injured. Everyone that got sent to the moon is a criminal. They deserve that. He says, yeah, what about the guy you tortured to death? Was that supposed to go that way? Deku says, you're damn right it was. That guy's quirk, it disturbed me. And that's when Hawks throws down the DNA test that lists everything on Shigaraki, including his quirk. Hawks says, you did the right thing. Look at his quirk. It's called decay. Apparently, he can decay things with touching all 5 fingers together. That is something that is deadly dangerous. And that would explain the injuries on Aizawa's arm. In fact, the witness statement that Aizawa gave confirmed that was the case. Deku looks at Hawks as he says, what? What's your angle? And Hawks says, I don't have an angle. I'm just trying to protect you here. You're like a little brother to me. Why don't you let me help? What is it about me that makes you so standoffish? Deku looks at him and he says, because you have a better life. Hawks says, I really don't. I'm just as much on a leash as you do. As you are, my guy. Literally, my past, I didn't have a happy one. My father was a villain. My mother just went along with him. Endeavor caught my father. And that's that. The only thing I was allowed to have as a child was my Endeavor plushie. And Deku says, but you've never critically injured people. You were taken from your parents because you had nowhere else to go. They couldn't support you. I got ripped away from mine. And sure, my family's been there for me now, but it's not the same. Those eight years at first were hell. I was so scared of using gravity, even after I got the support. I was scared. I was terrified. But still, I had to go on. I had to. Otherwise, there was just no way I could look at anybody else. So yeah, call it what you will, but those first 8 years were hell. I was treated like a rat. I didn't have anyone showing me any type of kindness. Not until you came up there 9 years into things. So a year later, you came in there. And you made them actually start treating me better. Even though they really didn't do it, having you there, tell them that I was still a human being that was worth something. That meant a lot to me. But at the same time, I realized we came from two different worlds. You were broken and made whole. I was whole and was broken. And I'm still not fully put back together. I don't think I ever am, or ever will be. And Hawks puts his hand on Deku's shoulder and he tells him, look, I'm still broken. I haven't been put back together, man. I just make it look like it. So how about this? How about we start treating each other like family? I'll be your big brother. You can be my little brother. And together, maybe we can finally stop being broken and fill those lines around the broken edges with gold. And we'll look 10 times better than we ever did. How's that? Deku starts to tear up a little bit. And he says, yeah, that's fine. So after that, Deku tells Hawks everything, including the parts he didn't want to. Hawks, he has Deku's back. He actually tells them only what they need to know, and the stuff that Deku didn't want anybody to know, Hawks doesn't say it. He takes his oath to Deku as his surrogate big brother figure a lot more seriously than anything else. To him, Deku is very important. And while the Hero Agency did save him, ultimately they think of him nothing more as a tool. So, Hawks is not gonna, betray Deku just for some people that think of him as a tool to be used. And with that, I'm gonna end it off, because next arc is the sports festival, and I'm not wanting to get into that one quite yet. So like I said, 900 likes, I'll get to work on part 3. So until then, I hope you guys have a great day. Peace.